Hey guys, welcome back to another ZanXG IGCSE biology video. So today we will hop into chapter 15, probably one of the most largest topic in the biology syllabus, and probably this is the second most students usually will understand a bit much better, which is definitely reproduction in humans. So as we are hopping into the second part of the reproduction video, this time we are going to cover humans, which is stated from the new syllabus 15.5 to 15.11. Alright. So disclaimer about this video, as it must be watched by viewers who are required to be much mature and whatever is being viewed later on, and please use this information for the use of your educational purposes and not for any gory detail. So enjoy the video, of course. So section 1, sexual reproduction. So as we know, there are two different of reproduction, which is one is asexual and one is sexual reproduction. So you have to watch back what is asexual reproduction about plants, but today we're just going to focus about sexual reproduction. So sexual reproduction, the full definition of it means the process of involving the fusion of the nuclei of two gametes, or what we call it as sex cells, to form a zygote, and the production of offspring that are genetically different from each other. So humans, like your brothers and your siblings, they are both genetically look different. So a zygote means a fertilized egg cells, and a fertilization means a fusion of gamete nuclei. We'll look more in that later on. So there are two different things in when it's some called of like gamete and a zygote, where it's being classified as haploid and diploid. So the nuclei of gamete is called haploid. So it contains half of the number of chromosomes. Remember that one human requires 46 chromosomes, where each 23. And the nucleus of a zygote is called a diploid, where it contains the full sets of chromosomes. So the nucleus meaning is the center core of the nucleus of the atom or, okay, so this is how it looks like. So it requires a sperm and an ovum to be fertilized together to form a diploid zygote. So before that, they are both called haploid because all of them only have half of the set of chromosomes. Therefore, it forms into a diploid. What inside contains is the maternal homologue and the paternal homologue, means it's male and female technically. Okay, so the advantages and disadvantages between wild species and crop production. So if advantages would be genetic variation, there's reduced risk of extinction, and secondly is the crop production, it has variety in yield. And disadvantages will be very time consuming, and there are a lot of resources required to make it happen, and a mate means you need to have someone in order you can have this sexual reproduction going on. And for disadvantage, you have a lower yield, less economic gains, offspring phenotypes, characteristics, and it cannot be controlled. Okay, we're going to enter this section to the introduction to the unisex reproduction system between male and female. Okay, so the first one would be the female human reproductive system. So pretty sure you guys have seen this before. So you can see there's a fallopian tube, and those left and right of the reproductive system, there's an ovary, and between there, the middle is the womb lining, with the womb, or it can be called as the uterus, and there will be the neck of the womb, or we call it as the cervix, and in the end is the vagina. All right, so the features of it, the functions, the ovary is to produce more ovums, and oviduct is where the fertilization occurs. The uterus lining is where the implantation of the zygote begins, and the cervix is allow the flow of menstrual blood to the vagina. You're going to learn this more in the menstrual cycle later on in this video. And the vagina is where it receives the penis using sexual reproduction. Sexual intercourse. Okay. So this is how the cross section looks like of a female reproductive system. So same thing, both of them are the fallopian tube, and we can see that's the uterus middle, and the oviduct and the ovaries. Oviducts to produce the egg cells. The uterus is where the embryo develops, and the cervix is the ring of muscle, and vagina is where it receives the sperm from the penis during sexual intercourse. And the cross section, you can see that's the rectum and the anus below them. So you can see there's some similarities between the left side and the right side of the cross section. Okay. Alright, the next one is the male reproductive system. Okay, we also have seen this before. So definitely in one of the things you can see is that there's a ureter on the top, and there's the vesicle, the prostate glands, epididymis, the testes, the urinary bladder, the erectile tissue, urethra, and of course the glans penis. Okay, so the features of everything of this is the testis is the one that produces the sperm. Just now, what it produces the ovaries are the oviduct, and scrotum is where it maintains the temperature of the testis slightly lower than body temperature. Again, what it all links to this is homeostasis. And prostate glands are to secrete the alkaline fluid to protect the sperm. And the urethra is to carry semen and blow during erection. And penis is where it carries the sperm to the cervix. Epidermis is where it stores the sperm. And the sperm duct is where it transports the semen from the testis to the urethra. Okay. So again, this is the cross section of how it looks like. So of course we know that there's a seminal vesicle at the top, but those which are not highlighted, you don't have to know this. You just have to know what is being highlighted. And the prostate glands is where it secretes the sperm. So sperm plus fluid equals to semen. And the sperm duct is where it connects the testes to the urethra. Urethra is where the urine and sperm leaves the body. So same thing, that is what is being held in here, the testis and which is produces sperm, and the cross section of it, there's a bone, the rectum and the anus, same as the female reproductive system cross section also. Okay, so what's this different? It's all different words again. Okay, and the difference between the male gamete versus the female gamete, which is the sperm and the ovum, of course, which the male gamete is much smaller and the structure of it is much elongated and is streamlined for swimming when it's being done after sexual intercourse. And the mobility is for the flagellum to swim, and the numbers are millions. Each contains 23 chromosomes, half the set of it. And the female gamete is much larger, therefore it's much spherical, contains a lot of protein and fat in the cytoplasm, and it doesn't move itself, but it's moved by the cilia. What is it? Linked to the ciliated cells in the oviduct. And it's 1 per month, and again, half set of the chromosomes, 23. Okay? So the ovum, same thing, but now there's an additional kind. This is the cell of it right now. So this is the layer of jelly, what you call that, or it's kind of the protection of the ovum. And the cell surface membrane, yes, it's the same exactly the features of a normal cell. And the cytoplasm contains also protein and fat, contains the yolk, and nucleus containing chromosomes, this one of course. The diameter of it, it's about 0.1 millimeter. The sperm, remember there's a flagellum which is adapted for swimming, and the length of it is about 0.05 millimeter. There's a head, and it contains the nucleus containing chromosomes and the mitochondria to release energy to swim, and the acrosome is for the vesicle containing enzymes to dissolve away through the jelly surrounding the egg cells. Alright, so we'll move on to the fertilization right now. So of course, male and female, they'll produce their ovum, and male will produce the sperm, and once they do sexual intercourse, they will happen to become a zygote. Remember, it's called a fertilized egg cell. It means there are 46 chromosomes in together. In total, there are 23 pairs. And once after fertilization, it has become an embryo. Same thing, 46 chromosomes in 23 pairs. Okay? So fertilization, this is how it happens. So if there is an egg in the oviduct, it will be fertilized immediately once the sperm has entered the uterus wall, and the sperms will swim through the uterus and to the oviduct to find the ovum, and the sperms are left in the top of the vagina. Okay, once most of it has been traveled up already, and the egg membrane stops more sperm from getting through. It only penetrates one. It means all of the millions of sperm that got passed through, only one can go into the egg. and the nucleus of the successfully sperm fuses with the egg nucleus, therefore it starts to fertilize. Okay, so this is now we are entering into implantation. So firstly is where ovulation starts. A mature follicle bursts and releases an egg into the oviduct. Therefore, it starts to fertilize with a sperm entering to form a zygote. Therefore, the zygote divides. And after several hours, a ball of cells are formed because they have to do mitosis. And the cells in the ball keep dividing as it expands and while it moves down to the oviduct. Now, at that stage, it's called an embryo. Next, number 6 is where implantation begins. The embryo sinks into the soft lining of the uterus and a placenta has formed. You will need to know the meaning later. So this is again kind of how it looks like again. Okay, and yeah, here. So the definition of implantation is the attachment of the fertilized egg to the uterine lining. Alright, so you can see from there, ovum travels towards the uterus by a rhythmic movement called peristalsis movement. Then we learn this from transport in animals, where most of our esophagus are going in and peristalsis movement. And once the ovum is fertilized, it becomes impenetrable, means other sperms that were left out were there to die. And the zygote, you see, via mitosis and implants to form into the uterus lining. So there the implantation starts from there. Attachment of the fertilized egg to the uterine lining. Okay. So after all of the implantation of this being fertilized, it has started to grow. Okay. So that's where we can see that the embryo has already expanded, and of course it's not really a baby yet. It's called an embryo for a reason. It's protected by what you call a fluid called the amniotic fluid, and it's covered with the amniotic membrane. Again, it's filled with the amniotic fluid to protect the embryo. So we have a lot of things connected together, what we call it as the umbilical cord, which helps to transfer oxygen and removes carbon dioxide. Okay, so everything all starts from the end. All the food will be all going into the embryo. So you can see it from the top, deoxygenated blood from the mother, it carries waste products from the embryo starting, and oxygenated blood from mother carries food and oxygen to the embryo. So you see, the embryo requires food and oxygen in order they can grow and survive longer. Okay, so yeah, inside is the amnion, the placenta, the amniotic fluid, and the embryo is inside there. Okay, so yes, from the same thing just now, we can see the lining of the uterus, the vein from the mother. So of course, oxygen, blood, and food must always go to the embryo, and the fetus blood is separated from the mother's blood by a thin wall of placenta, so the blood cannot mix together. And there's an umbilical cord, same thing, there's always containing an artery and a vein. Must remember how the artery and vein works. Okay, so this is the amnion. Same thing, there's always a muscular wall, the spongy lining of the uterus, and there's a plug of mucus in the cervix, amniotic fluid, the amnion, the vagina is just there. So after it's been grown, then it starts to squeeze in the cervix and enters out from the vagina. So continue, we can see there's the placenta, the umbilical cord, everything, the same thing, the cross section of how it looks. And that time is where the wall of the cervix has become gradually wide enough for the baby's head to pass out from the vagina. So the wall of vagina is stretched, allows the baby to be pushed through, push out basically. Okay, so again, same thing, but this is much deeper right now. So the amniotic sac is to protect the baby, plus makes amniotic fluid to protect the surrounding, as called what you call it, a shock absorber. And the cycle of exchange of diffusion, remember the capillaries of the arteries and veins, the fetus receives the oxygen plus dissolved nutrients, and the fetus removes O2 and urea. So again, what they mostly do here is diffusion, and the placenta acts as a barrier from toxins and pathogens. Some toxics can pass across the placenta and affects the fetus, such as nicotine. Nicotine comes from smoking. That's why pregnant mothers cannot smoke. Otherwise, it will affect the baby. So, the umbilical cord connected from the belly button is where it attaches the fetus to the placenta to plus contain blood vessels to transport blood. Okay. So function of the placenta surely is to provide oxygen and nutrients, removes urea or any other waste products, and is connected to the uterus lining. The function of the umbilical cord is to supply nutrient-rich blood to the fetus and exit of wasted products, and it connects placenta to the fetus. And the function of the amniotic sac is houses the fetus with the amniotic fluid. It's a protection and to regulate the temperature inside the stomach. The next one is antenatal care. Okay, so periodically you have to go for checkups and you must consume essential nutrients, okay, such as those as we know, and exercise a lot, and of course you must eat a healthy balanced diet, and plus it will link back to nutrients, maybe vitamin supplements. Okay, then birth, labor and childbirth. So again, it's firstly they break the amniotic sac first, and the uterus starts to contract. The dilation occurs in the cervix, and the passage of the body comes through the vagina. First thing, head comes out first, and legs are the last. And tying and cutting of the umbilical cord forms in the belly button. Okay, see, and delivery after birth, the placenta. So yeah, you can see it's nearly the same here. Alright. Okay, section 4 will be puberty and sex hormones in humans. So puberty starts from around 10 and ends at 18. So changes in male is of course the penis and the testes are enlarged, the sperm starts to be produced, the secretion released from the prostate gland starts to occur. And secondary sexual characteristics is growth of chest, pubic and armpit hair. The voice deepens because of the changes in the larynx. You should know where the larynx is from respiratory system. And changes in female will be ovulation occurs, menstruation starts, uterus and the vagina grow bigger. Then secondary sexual characteristic will be the breast being developed, the growth of the pubic and armpit hair, body changes, the hips widen and the waist narrow due to vagina. Okay, of course. And menstrual cycle, one of the most important things that you have to know. So discharge of blood, uterus lining and ovum, ovary, follicle releases ovum, and corpus luteum. So again, this is just another kind of like cycle. So ovulation, the follicle releasing an egg cell from the ovary, fertilization could take place, but the follicle turns into a corpus luteum and the lining of the uterus becomes more vascular, receive the embryo from if the egg is fertilized. And menstruation, as the egg has not been fertilized, the thick uterus lining is not needed and it starts to break down, gradually lost through the vagina. And after that, inside the ovary, a follicle containing an egg cell develops, the uterus lining is again repaired. Alright, so yeah. Okay, here we can see is the follicular phase and the luteal phase. So menstruation occurs for 28 days, and see, you can see that the estrogen increases and until the LH is the peak, and then it goes down as the day increases and the progesterone increases again. So the hormone of FSH is produced by the pituitary glands, where it causes the egg to grow mature into follicles, and it stimulates the ovaries to release estrogen. See, estrogen takes over. So the estrogen is produced by the ovary or the follicle, causes the lining of the uterus to develop and thicken. can cause the LH to be released and inhibits FSH. See? Okay, and LH is produced by the pituitary glands, causes ovulation to occur, and egg releases from the follicle or the ovary. And lastly, progesterone increases again from the corpus luteum or the placenta when it's pregnant. So, and to maintain the lining of the uterus so fertilized egg can implant and inhibits the LH, and so no more eggs are being released. So no ovulation occurs again. Alright, so okay, see, I've already said it already. So FSH is basically means the follicle stimulating hormone, and LH is the luteinizing hormone. Same thing what I said just now. You can have a look again. And care, what it can occur is the antenatal care, infant care, or breastfeeding versus bottle feeding. Alright. Okay, so the advantages between breastfeeding versus bottle feeding is that breastfeeding balance of nutrients, it's free, temperature antibodies are being passed on together. And bottle feeding is that you're able to monitor the amount being consumed, anyone can feed. And disadvantages is that the infant determines the amount consumed, only mothers can feed, the medication and or diets affects breast milk together. And bottle feeding is harder to digest and needs warming, therefore the milk powder, the milk content is expensive. Alright. Okay, lastly of this is section 5, methods of birth control. So of course you can see our textbook of page 180 to 181. Firstly is natural adaptation, or we call it natural birth control, or artificial adaptation, chemical method, mechanical method, or surgical method. So the chemical method is where you insert an IUD, or an intrauterine device, or to prevent fertilization and implantation to occur, and an intrauterine system, or an IUS. This is what you just have to know for chemical birth control. And some people, they use contraceptive pills, okay, implant, or an injection. Another thing is this. Alright, so next one is mechanical method. So mechanical method, one of it is the condoms. Next one is the femidom. The third one is the diaphragm, barrier of method of birth control, and it blocks the sperm from entering the vagina. Okay, before that, there are details that you should know. So first thing for barrier birth control is the condoms are being placed over an erect penis, and it collects sperm plus semen together. And the femidom is placed inside the vagina, collects the sperm and semen, so sperm cannot reach the egg. And the diaphragm is capped and is placed over the cervix. The reason is this to stop the passage of sperm to uterus. Alright? Okay. Next one, surgical birth control, or the surgical method. One of it is called the vasectomy, and another one is female sterilization, where therefore sperm ducts cut and the cut ends tight. And another one is the surgical cutting of the oviducts. So for the vasectomy is to not allow any more sperm being ejaculated, and female sterilization is to stop the eggs reaching the uterus. Okay, so both of them have different kind of methods in male and female. Okay, remember guys, for methods of birth control in human, it doesn't happen anymore in the 2023 syllabus. So therefore you don't really have to know this, but it's good for, again, to read a bit so you can know how to do some questions. Okay, so fertility treatment is FSH, in vitro, artificial insemination from a donor, or a surrogate mother. So yes, this is another type of fertility treatment that can occur. Alright. Okay, next one, in vitro fertilization, IVF. So where the LH and the FSH is being injected to release several eggs, and the eggs are fertilized with sperm in the laboratory, and embryo returned to a woman's uterus. Okay, then artificial insemination is how it looks like this, and that's all. Boom! Section 6, last section of the video. Sexually transmitted infection, or what we call this STIs famously. Okay, first thing, sexually transmitted infections are basically infection that is transmitted via body fluids through sexual contact basically. So one of it is the HIV, or we call it the human immunodeficiency virus infection, and also the acquired immune deficiency syndromes, or we call it AIDS. Okay, so HIV infects the lymphocytes, destroy lymphocytes, and the immune system is compromised to be unable to fight pathogens. Means any the contraction of COVID-19 example, the lymphocytes cannot do anything. Okay, so that's all. So HIV can definitely occur in anywhere, sharing needles, of course, unprotected sex, mother to fetus, blood transfusion, and the control spread of STIs is unvoid from unprotected sex, and virus equals attacks and kill and doesn't allow it to defend to any regular illnesses. And if you got AIDS, it's likely you can die from the infection that is not normally life-threatening. Alright, so that's all for this. This is the final part of chapter 15 of reproduction. Okay, hope to see you guys in the next video. Try to understand it better. Okay, you need time to really digest this information. Alright, see you in the next video. Bye bye.